So feel free to talk about anything that's been going on this week, anything that moved you about my talk, or things that are going on that it illuminated or that you have gained wisdom from. We all benefit. We even benefit from your cluelessness if you're willing to show it. I don't know what to do. Yes, that's part of this human life too. All right, Anna.
Hi, I'm on a phone at my in-laws' house. Let me see if I can lower my hand. Uh, did
I
it?
can do
Okay.
it for you.
I
Okay.
got it. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing this really powerful, poignant story. I can't believe you were in that situation for 15 years. Wow. What it brought up for me was just what the lesson of certain illnesses is for us. Are you able to hear me? Is it like choppy and weird?
No, you're fine.
Okay. Yeah. Like I remember one of my earliest retreats that I ever went on was at Isabella Friedman Jewish Retreat Center. And I just remember that I used to sit with the Coopers, this couple, and Shoshana Cooper said, I was just diagnosed with osteoporosis. And for me, the meaning of that is the emptiness of bone. Like there's no self within the bone. So she had this whole take on it. Like, what is the dharma of this illness? It was great. So I was diagnosed with something really weird when I was 23. And it came up as I was going to volunteer at a hospital. I had to take a routine blood test. And they kept leaving messages on my phone that I ignored for months. Like, please come in. There's something up with your blood test. And I was like, it's probably nothing. And by the time I had it checked, I had like some weird acute aplastic anemia where my blood was not producing platelets. It was very bizarre. So, but I didn't add the second arrow. That's the thing. Like, I was just like, okay, I don't feel sick. I'm getting some bruises, but my life is in shambles because I was just like, I was at a place where I was trying to figure out what to do next. I was supposed to go to India for a year. And to me, this was like, well, I guess I'm not supposed to go. The lesson for me was more about being okay with the uncertainty of the future than it was any like physical distress. But for my parents, there was some huge suffering associated with it. Of course, they were flipping out. We're going to lose our 23-year-old daughter, who's like, seems to be in the peak of health, but there's something fatally wrong with her. And they drove down to where I was living in DC. I was getting like platelet transfusions. I was in the hospital every 3 days. They were flipping out, obviously. And I was just like, okay, I'm just going to practice like all the time. I'm just going to meditate the heck out of this. And I'll just start visualizing the hemoglobin count that I want. I would just do that. I'd be like, I'm going in for my blood test, and I'd visualize like, I'm going to get 80 parts per million. And you know what? It started working.
Wow.
And finally, National Institutes of Health, like, I don't know what to do with this story, but it's just this weird thing in my life. And National Institutes of Health were like, you can go to India. It's fine. Just keep sending us your blood tests. And they started going up and up and up. And finally, they went into the normal range within like a year of when I was first diagnosed. So it's just a weird thing where it's like, I'm not sure if the lesson was more for me or for my parents or for the National Institutes of Health people to be like, I guess meditation could be a viable cure. I don't know. This is just what this talk brought up for me. So I thought I'd bring it up tonight.
All right. Thanks, Anna. That's a really interesting story. Yeah. Regardless, we're here to have the experience and to learn. Doesn't matter who the lesson's for. There's always that opportunity. And being at peace with not knowing, not being uncertain. It's very powerful. Very powerful. All right, Allison.
So how do I put my hand down? Okay. Wow. Wow. I came on not expecting this whole story from you, Mark. It was really quite profound, actually. It brought up a lot because I've had a lot of phases of dealing with illness of various sorts, some more diagnosable than others, and brain fog and stuff, which is still persisting. Um, but I think what's interesting by the different stories that's coming up, things that I realize, yes, I've been really good at laying on or shooting that second arrow or being in resistance a lot of times to what has come up because of somehow very early in my life, becoming very aware that of the impermanence, but not wanting to, and that death could be right around the corner, that there was this huge pressure to really make something of it. And then when I couldn't do the things that I maybe wanted to do to grab and live life to the fullest, like dance in Argentina, tango. I have the opportunity and I can't walk. I'm limping and in chronic pain, and I'm supposed to be enjoying being up at 5 a.m. dancing, and I am like brain dead because I haven't slept for 2 years, really, because I'm in chronic pain. Sort of appreciating in myself sort of this sometimes determination to like get the most out of it, but it's also has brought on tremendous additional pain, suffering, sometimes even for people around me, because I'm struggling so hard to do more than I was capable. I think you mentioned something about accepting sort of what one is able, and that's coming up a lot now, being older, having other new health issues, feeling homeless, even though I'm not. I'm trying to appreciate that, still feeling unsettled. But the other thing that was saying about this thing about things happening and the sort of notion around us in our society, and it's a little triggered by what Anna was saying, that somehow we are responsible for our health and our well-being and our happiness and the good things that happen. And whether it's by hard work, the American way, or by prayer and meditation, somehow we're going to heal these things. I'm grappling with that because even recently today, someone was saying, well, everything again, as you get this, everything happens for a reason. And I'm going, that's a nice thought. Is that true? Or if you pray or meditate, we can heal ourselves. There's so much pressure around, and sometimes, at least, and I don't want to hold it as a belief that might stop possibility, but sometimes, and I think of it maybe more Buddhist, the answer is we really don't know. It's a nice thought. We don't really know if this will work or we won't. Some people, good people, get sick and die and have eaten. I had someone I know young who is good health, good person, did all the alternative things well and had cancer and died, and young, and I know people, who have smoked and done all these horrible things, and they've lived to like almost 100, enjoyed their life, drinking, whatever. So I'm grappling with this. And I think the thing I appreciate you selling the story, but also weaving it with the sort of the Buddhist notions, because I think also now there's just so much about spirituality and positive thinking, again. And I'm feeling, I get angry sometimes because it feels like that almost feels like another arrow to add on to the experience. Like somehow if I'm more spiritual or more better or more positive, or if I had the faith that there is a reason for this, it would all be fine. But I don't.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the nature of egos that we want to, our egos kind of shine when we're able to make the things we want come about. And there's this kind of shadow of shame when you can't do that. The shame, like there's something wrong with me, that I'm not the healthy one, that I'm not the successful one, that I'm not the, and, that's come clearer and clearer to me, the shadow that casts, that sense that I'm in control and so forth. So I think what you're describing is that sort of vulnerability, really, when things aren't going well, to, I would call shame, that shame of what's wrong with me. which I think unwittingly sometimes people's stories about their healings or whatever can evoke in us, because it worked for them, it doesn't necessarily work for in this case, and we don't actually know the whole basis of that. We don't actually know, and yet in every circumstance we can continue to meet what arises as it is, and know this experience as it is, even knowing the experience of being having your shame triggered by something someone says. That's a really important human experience to meet and know. Painful, unpleasant, but it's a really important thing to illuminate and to be with. So yes, to meet each experience, know it as it is, and to know those parts of you that want to rally and pull you up by your bootstraps. They're trying so hard, and the parts of you that feel defeated, the parts of you that are just downright confused, and to find the place in you that is aware of all of it, and in some sense at peace with all of it, to find that and to live in that, to actually rest in that place that is actually, okay, this is how it is. This is just how it is. Yeah.
I think, when I hear it's like so reassuring that Mark, when I come, it's like somehow things you say just make sense to me. But in the world out large, you get, it's not just what's coming in inside, you get the messages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so and being aware of that, and then to see how you bounce off with all these messages, even, from medical profession, okay, go treat yourself, go to the doctor, take care of it. And I was like, sometimes they don't have a clue. They don't, or they give a label like chronic fatigue, whatever, but it's like, okay, now what do long COVID. Okay, what do you do about it?
Yeah.
They don't know.
That's what a syndrome is. It's a bunch of symptoms that you don't necessarily know the cause of or the solution for. Yeah. There's many of them.
One thing I know, I was feeling taking on a story, I do know though at times, that sometimes, and who know that power of either it's prayer or meditation or visualization, and they are studying, can help healing. It may not cure, but it may, and again, they don't know, but it may, and doesn't. I mean, I know I got myself through the chronic hip pain partly in being able to dance because of visualization. That, it was like, how could you be doing this movement? You have no joint space. Well, I sort of almost willed it until I couldn't anymore. But
Mm-hmm.
it's sort of fat. It's just sort of fat. The other part was to sort of, and thinking back to this whole thing about remaining curious too.
Remaining curious, yes. And so I like you, I really think that there are moments when we heal ourselves, but it's not a point of shame if you haven't been able to do that. It's not actually a point of shame or inadequacy if you haven't been able to do that. So it's quite a balance to be open to the possibilities, but not to be down on yourself as they don't work out. And I'm not sure if the right word is lucky, karmically blessed, or it was a matter of karma or intelligence or whatever to pull out of this condition, because a lot of people never do. I think that's a far more common experience. People never really do. And and there's so much about life is like, at a certain point, running into someone that actually knows something that will help you a little, and then running into somebody else who knows it'll help you a little more. And, there's all so much chance in it. But that's part of life too. So thank you, Allison, for your word.
I want to hear what other people say, but I'm curious if you would talk about, for everything, there is a reason. Like, what where does that fit in with Buddhist?
Yeah. I don't use that exactly for everything. There is a reason. I haven't found that to be a helpful point of reference. If other people find that helpful, good. But I haven't particularly found that. And that's so my little phrase that I use, that I'm here to know the whole human experience and to learn, doesn't necessarily imply that somebody's texting me every time something goes wrong, that there's a message there. It's not quite, it doesn't necessarily imply that, but it does imply that in any situation, there are seeds of growth and maturity that can be seen and reaped in any situation. And that every human experience has dignity. And that's a hard thing to say. For instance, we're talking about the body falling apart. I mean, we often talk about how the lack of dignity in that, and suddenly you can't swallow your food. You can't take yourself to the bathroom. It's, kind of humanly embarrassing. And yet, and I mean this truly, there's dignity in it. There's dignity in every human experience, even that of your body falling apart. But oftentimes you hear people talk about how undignified it is. They're talking about that fundamental experience as we as egos want to be capable of getting the things we want. That's what an ego does. And this shadow of shame, from a very early age, socially, we've been trained to, we were potty trained for a good reason. So when that goes, of course, there's all sorts of human conditioning there that's going to find it difficult. But from a deeper perspective, there's dignity there. There's dignity in knowing this experience. I mean, how many human beings towards the end experience this? Lots of human beings, and sometimes through their whole lives. So I found that to be really helpful, that every human experience has dignity. Whatever somebody is living through has dignity, even if it's painful and horrible. And my somewhat extreme example that I sometimes turn to when I used to teach in the Cadogan Center is if somebody walked in the door with a gun and started shooting everybody, we'd all be freaking out. We'd all be terrified. We'd all be horrified, and no one would ever say anything. This is anything good about this experience. And yet, awareness would be there taking it all in. It wouldn't be arguing with anything that was happening there. There is a place inside of us that doesn't argue with anything. And that's gold, to know that. To know that there's a place inside of us that doesn't argue with anything that arises. And that we can start to live from there. That's really powerful. All right, anyone else here want to chime in? Ben, go ahead.
I see a lot of people at work who, in the traditional sense, similar to Leslie's sister, perhaps, often related to not controlling, loss of control combined with bodily functions. For example, people, you tend to think that they've lost dignity, but I really like the way you're framing it, because I think what I'm hearing is related to earlier comments you made about this idea that we get, everything we need to get what we want, things need to go our way, and we need to succeed. But having the opposite of that experience can have purpose, meaning, depth, and ultimately dignity. It's kind of a, I hadn't really thought about it like that, but I'm a little bit relieved to hear you say that, honestly. So those are my comments. And one little question: what did you mean when you said, that sense of loss that you were feeling when you were sick? What sense of what was that like? What was that
What
about?
was the sense of loss was like? Well, first of all, it was loss of my clarity of mind. I mean, my mind was foggy. It was, loss of who I thought I was going to be, or even the parent I thought I was going to be. I had two small children, and I had had expectations of myself, which I wasn't meeting. There's kind of a loss there. And when you don't have energy, you don't necessarily want to do much. So it was, the world kind of dreamed of possibility a lot. I knew it was out there, but it wasn't necessarily something I had the energy to reach for. It did kind of hone down to what really mattered. I did have energy, enough energy for what mattered. Trying to think of how else to express the loss. Like most people, I had identified with my capabilities, and I was losing them. I was losing my stamina, losing my clarity of mind, losing the peace of sleep. I have to say that's an awful big one. Maybe some of you who are insomniacs know what I'm talking about. I didn't have insomnia. It kind of goes along with chronic fatigue syndrome, that you don't go into the deepest level of sleep ever, and so, like the loss of rest in a certain way was profound. So that, like, going to bed wasn't necessarily the refuge that it feels like to me now. Sometimes I go to bed, it's like, it's great. But it wasn't like that. See what else I could even say about the loss. And on some level, just kind of the loss that represents the I'm in charge of my life sort of illusion. And my experience is that losing illusions is still a real loss. When you lose the illusion that you are in control of your life, it's still a loss, even though it's an illusion. Because none of us are in complete control of our lives, and yet that's how egos function. Egos exist to kind of give us that sense of I'm effective in the world, and I can get what I want, and I can anticipate what's coming, and I can plan for that, and I can, all of this sort of stuff. That's how we operate. And so when you can't do that well, there's a loss. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah,
You're welcome.
and thanks for the dignity
Yeah.
comments. I'm going to think about that.
Yeah. And if anybody can come up with another word that fits that of what I mean by dignity, it's just my general sense that because consciousness is so precious, it's such a miracle that we are awake to experience it all, that we can know experience. My sense is even the experience of something horrible, there's still a miracle there. There's still consciousness. Even when it's pain that you can't really hardly endure. There's still consciousness there. There's something, and so I think if I were to point to what I mean by dignity, it's something like that, that a consciousness is going through this. I have to bow to it, I like honor it. There's a consciousness that's going through this. At the same time, thank heavens we have all the things that we do have to avoid some of the horrible things the body can go through. I think what even, 100 years ago, people had to face in getting old and dying without necessarily the drugs to put them out of their misery, so to speak, the opiates. And, well, they had opiates 100 years ago. But anyway, there's a lot more technology of ease today than there used to be. And what people had to face and have teeth out without any sort of Novocaine or anything.
Yeah.
The courage that it took to live, it's really remarkable. So it's not that I want to go back to the good old days, but nonetheless, I feel like consciousness is so precious that everything that any being experiences is of value. All right, we're at our time. So
Starkly human.
I'll send you off for another week. Be well. Bring your stories back.